Before we begin, take a slow breath and allow yourself to be fully present in this moment. This reading is meant for entertainment and personal reflection. If these words resonate with you, accept them. If they don't, simply leave them behind. Now, I don't believe you found this video by accident. Out of millions of videos online, something pulled you here today. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was hope. Or maybe your heart has been carrying a question that nobody around you has been able to answer. Because the energy surrounding you right now feels different. Very different. Your soulmate has been trying to reach you. Not necessarily through a phone call. Not through a text message. But through dreams, strange emotions, unexpected memories, and tiny signs that appear when you least expect them. And something happened last night that completely shifted their emotions. It wasn't just another ordinary night. For many of you, your soulmate couldn't sleep. They kept waking up. Thinking about someone they couldn't explain. Feeling a connection they could no longer ignore. Some of them even had a dream so vivid that when they opened their eyes, your energy stayed with them. If you've recently felt restless. If you've been waking up around the same time every night. Or if someone's face suddenly appeared in your mind without any reason. Don't ignore it. Because the energy between two souls often speaks before two people ever do. I'm sensing hesitation. Not from you. From them. They've been fighting their own emotions for a long time. They convinced themselves that staying silent was easier. That avoiding their feelings would protect them. But something inside them broke last night. It was like their heart whispered. If you don't speak now, you may lose this person forever. That realization hit them deeply. Some even cried. Not because they were weak. But because they finally admitted the truth they had been hiding from themselves. And the truth is simple. They love you more than they expected. Much more. Even if you've never officially been together. Even if you're separated. Even if you've never met. The emotional connection already exists. I also sense that someone watching this video has almost given up. You've told yourself. Maybe love isn't meant for me. Maybe I should stop waiting. Maybe I imagined everything. But your energy says otherwise. You're standing at the end of one chapter. A completely different chapter is beginning. The silence you've experienced isn't permanent. It's preparation. Your soulmate has been healing from wounds they never showed anyone. People around them think they're fine. But inside, they've been carrying guilt. Regret. Fear. And one specific memory keeps replaying inside their mind. A moment they wish they could change. Maybe they walked away too soon. Maybe they never confessed how they truly felt. Maybe life separated both of you before either heart was ready. Whatever happened, last night forced them to face it. No more running. No more pretending. No more denying. For some of you, your soulmate looked at an old photograph. For others, they heard a song. Saw your name. Or experienced something so unexpected that it immediately reminded them of you. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps the universe has its own language. One thing feels incredibly strong. They're afraid. Not of loving you. They're afraid you won't forgive them. They're afraid you've already moved on. They're afraid they're too late. That's why the next few weeks feel extremely important. Energy that has been frozen for months. Even years. is beginning to move again. Doors that seemed permanently closed are slowly opening. But here's something you must hear carefully. Do not chase. Do not force. Do not beg for anyone's attention. Your power right now comes from peace. The calmer you become, the louder your energy speaks. Because love built on desperation never lasts. Love built on emotional truth changes lives. And your soulmate is finally reaching that truth. I also keep hearing these words repeating over and over again. I wish I had said something sooner. That sentence carries so much regret. If this connects with your situation, know that healing is closer than it appears. Not because magic suddenly fixes everything, but because honesty always changes the future. And someone is becoming honest with themselves. Very soon. Someone will stop hiding. Someone will stop pretending. Someone will finally admit, I've loved you all along. But this isn't the end of the message. In fact, the most important part has not even begun. Because what your soulmate saw in their dream last night, the exact words they want to tell you, and the decision they are preparing to make, may completely surprise you. So stay with me. Because in the next part, we're going much deeper into what their heart has been trying to say all this time. Before we continue, I want you to do one simple thing. Don't think about anyone. Don't force anyone's face into your mind. Just listen. The message that is meant for you will naturally find you. Because right now, I'm sensing that your soulmate has been carrying a conversation inside their heart for a very long time. A conversation they've never spoken out loud. If they were sitting in front of you at this exact moment, I believe these are the words they would struggle to say. I never stop thinking about you. Not every day. Not every hour. But in those quiet moments. When the world became silent. When everyone else was asleep. Your memory always returned. Sometimes it happened because of a song. Sometimes because of a place. Sometimes because they saw someone who reminded them of you. And every single time, their heart whispered the same question. What if I made the biggest mistake of my life? That question has become heavier than ever. Especially after what happened last night. There is an energy of realization surrounding this connection. It's as though something finally broke through the walls they built around themselves. For months. Maybe even years. They convinced themselves that time would erase these feelings. But time didn't erase anything. It only made the feelings clearer. Stronger. Impossible to ignore. Here's something interesting. Your soulmate has been pretending to be okay in front of other people. They smile. They laugh. They continue with work, responsibilities, daily life. But deep inside, something has been missing. A part of them has always felt incomplete. And they finally understand why. Because they weren't missing success. They weren't missing money. They weren't missing attention. They were missing the feeling they experienced whenever your energy entered their life. That feeling cannot be replaced. Not by anyone. Not by anything. I'm also sensing another message. Someone around your soulmate may have told them to let go. To move on. To stop thinking about the past. They tried. They really did. But every attempt only brought them back to you. Have you ever noticed how certain people disappear from our lives, yet somehow never leave our hearts? That's exactly what's happening here. Distance did not weaken this connection. It revealed its depth. Now I want you to pay close attention. Because this next part feels incredibly important. Your soulmate has been watching. Maybe not physically. Maybe not through social media. But emotionally. They've been wondering how you're doing. Whether you're happy. Whether someone else has entered your life. Whether they still have a chance. That uncertainty has become unbearable. And uncertainty often creates courage. People stay silent. Until the fear of losing someone becomes greater than the fear of speaking. That's exactly where your soulmate is now. Standing between fear and confession. There is another energy that keeps appearing. Regret. Not small regret. Deep regret. The kind that keeps someone awake at night. The kind that makes them replay old conversations again and again. Thinking. If only I had said one more sentence. If only I hadn't walked away. If only I had trusted my heart instead of my fear. Those thoughts have become impossible for them to escape. Some of you may wonder. If this is true, then why haven't they reached out already? The answer feels surprisingly simple. Because healing happens in stages. First comes awareness. Then acceptance. Then courage. Your soulmate has already crossed the first two stages. Now they're standing at the edge of the third. Courage. And courage changes everything. I'm also picking up the number 3. For some viewers. 3 days. For others. 3 weeks. Or even the 3rd month from now. Numbers in intuitive readings often represent timing differently for each person. Don't force the meaning. Simply notice whether it appears naturally in your life. Now here's the message I believe your soulmate wants you to hear the most. Please don't think I forgot you. Please don't believe you meant nothing to me. I was fighting battles you never saw. I was trying to become someone worthy of the love I felt. Those words carry enormous emotional weight. Many people confuse silence with absence of love. But sometimes, silence is created by fear. By insecurity. By believing you're not enough. Your soulmate has struggled with exactly those feelings. They question themselves constantly. Would they even want to hear from me? Would I only reopen old wounds? What if they've already found someone better? These questions became prison walls. Walls that are finally beginning to crack. The energy around this connection is changing rapidly. Old misunderstandings are losing their power. Old fears are becoming smaller. Old pain is turning into wisdom. And wisdom often leads people back toward the truth. Before we move into the next part, I want you to remember something. Real love doesn't demand perfection. It asks for honesty. And honesty is finally finding its voice. Because the next message your soulmate wants to share is even more emotional than this one. It involves a promise they silently made. A promise nobody knows about. One that could completely change the direction of this connection. The promise. The one your soulmate has never spoken out loud. The one they made in complete silence. It wasn't written on paper. It wasn't said to another person. It was made deep inside their own heart. And the promise sounded something like this. If life ever gives me one more chance, I won't waste it again. Those words carry an incredible amount of emotion. Because they didn't make that promise during a happy moment. They made it after feeling the weight of regret. After realizing that some opportunities don't stay forever. I'm sensing that your soulmate has reached a point where pretending no longer works. For so long, they buried themselves in responsibilities. They distracted themselves with work, with family, with endless tasks. Anything that could keep their mind busy. But the strange thing about the heart is this. It waits patiently. No matter how many distractions we create, the truth eventually returns. And that's exactly what happened last night. Something became impossible to ignore. For some of them, it happened after everyone had gone to sleep. The room was quiet. The lights were off. There were no conversations. No noise. Just silence. And sometimes silence becomes the loudest voice of all. Because in that silence, your memory appeared. Not as a passing thought. Not as a random image. But as a feeling. A feeling so powerful that it caught them completely off guard. They tried to push it away. They couldn't. They tried to convince themselves it would disappear. It didn't. Instead, it became stronger. That is why this message feels so urgent. Not because something dangerous is about to happen, but because someone's heart has reached the point where it can no longer deny what it truly feels. I'm also sensing that many of you watching this have asked the universe the same question over and over again. If this connection is real, then why has it been so difficult? That's a fair question. Sometimes two people meet before they're emotionally ready. Sometimes love arrives. But healing hasn't happened yet. Sometimes life separates people, not to punish them, but to teach them the lessons they couldn't have learned together. Growth often happens in separation. And reunion, when it happens, is never the same as the first meeting. It becomes deeper. More honest. More mature. That's exactly the energy surrounding this connection. Your soulmate is no longer looking at you through fantasy. They're looking at you through clarity. They no longer admire only your smile. They admire your strength. The way you've survived things nobody applauded you for. The way you've continued moving forward, even when your heart felt heavy. Whether they've seen that directly or simply sensed it, they respect you more than ever before. There's another message coming through now. It's surprisingly specific. Your soulmate feels guilty for the moments you cried without them knowing. They don't know every detail. But they feel they weren't there when they should have been. That thought weighs heavily on them. If they could turn back time, there are conversations they would change. Words they would choose differently. Silences they would break. Hugs they would never let end. But time only moves forward. And perhaps that's why they're beginning to understand that the only thing they can change is what they choose to do next. I'm seeing an image of a closed door. At first it looks completely locked. But then, very slowly, the handle begins to move. Not because someone forced it open, but because someone on the other side finally found the courage to turn it. That door represents communication. The first honest conversation. The first genuine effort. The first step toward healing. Will it happen exactly the way you expect? Probably not. Life rarely follows our imagined script. But it often creates moments far more meaningful than the ones we planned. There's something else I need to tell you. Your soulmate has been asking themselves a difficult question. Do I deserve another chance? Probably not. Life rarely follows our imagined script. But it often creates moments far more meaningful than the ones we planned. There's something else I need to tell you. Your soulmate has been asking themselves a difficult question. Do I deserve another chance? Notice they aren't asking whether they still love you. They already know that answer. The question haunting them is whether they deserve to be welcomed back into your life. Because they understand that trust isn't rebuilt through words. It's rebuilt through actions. That realization marks a huge emotional shift. It means they're no longer thinking only about what they want. They're thinking about what you need to feel safe. What you need to feel valued. What you need to truly believe them. That kind of emotional maturity doesn't happen overnight. It's born from reflection. From loneliness. From lessons that cannot be avoided. And I believe those lessons have changed them more than anyone around them realizes. As we move into the next part, the energy grows even stronger. Because there is one truth your soulmate has been terrified to admit, even to themselves. A truth they've hidden beneath pride, fear, and silence for far too long. And once that truth is spoken, nothing between the two of you will ever feel the same again. Nothing between the two of you will ever feel the same again. Because the truth they have been trying to hide has finally become too heavy to carry. For the longest time, they believed that staying silent was the safest choice. If they never spoke, they could never be rejected. If they never reached out, they would never have to face disappointment. If they convinced themselves that their feelings didn't matter, perhaps the pain would eventually disappear. But the heart doesn't work that way. You can silence your voice. You can avoid difficult conversations. You can distract yourself for months or even years. Yet the heart remembers what the mind tries to forget. That is exactly what has happened here. Every day they tried to move forward. Something quietly pulled them back. Sometimes it was a familiar place. Sometimes a song they hadn't heard in years. Sometimes a scent in the air. Sometimes a stranger whose smile reminded them of yours. Those tiny moments became impossible to ignore. At first they brushed them aside. Then they started noticing how often they happened. Eventually they stopped calling them coincidences. They simply accepted that your presence had never truly left their heart. And once they accepted that truth, another realization followed. The life they imagined without you never felt complete. Everything looked normal from the outside. They kept achieving goals. They smiled in photographs. They celebrated birthdays. They met new people. Life continued moving. But inside, there was always one empty space they couldn't explain. No matter how much they accomplished, something remained unfinished. That emptiness wasn't created by loneliness. It was created by an unfinished chapter. By words left unsaid. By emotions left unspoken. They've replayed countless imaginary conversations with you. Sometimes those conversations ended with laughter. Sometimes with tears. Sometimes with forgiveness. But every version ended the same way. With them finally saying the words they should have spoken long ago. I never stopped caring. Those words have lived inside them for far longer than anyone realizes. Even they didn't fully understand the depth of those feelings until recently. Love often reveals itself only after silence becomes unbearable. And that silence has become unbearable now. They've begun asking themselves questions they avoided for a very long time. What if they're waiting for me? What if I've misunderstood everything? What if my fear stole something beautiful from both of us? Questions like these don't disappear easily. They grow louder. Especially late at night. Especially when the world becomes quiet. Especially when there is no one left to distract the mind. I'm sensing that your soulmate has changed in ways you may not expect. The person they were before is not the same person they are becoming now. Life has humbled them. Certain experiences forced them to look inward. Some relationships disappointed them. Some plans failed. Some people they trusted walked away. And through all of those experiences, they began understanding your value more clearly than ever before. Sometimes people only recognize the warmth of sunlight after standing in the cold. Your absence became that lesson. Not to punish them, but to awaken them. Now they're beginning to understand that genuine connections are incredibly rare. Real emotional safety cannot be replaced. True understanding cannot be copied. And the peace they felt around your energy is something they have searched for without success. That's why their heart keeps returning to you. Not because they are lonely, but because they finally recognize what they once overlooked. There's another feeling surrounding this connection. Gratitude. Even after everything that happened. They're grateful they met you. Because knowing you changed something inside them forever. You taught them lessons about love they never expected to learn. You showed them parts of themselves they had spent years hiding. Whether they admitted it or not. You became one of the most meaningful chapters of their life. And deep down, they know it. That realization has softened their heart. It has made pride feel small. It has made ego feel meaningless. When love becomes genuine, winning arguments no longer matters. Being right no longer matters. Only one thing matters. Not losing the person your heart truly chose. That thought has been echoing inside them again and again. And with every passing day, the fear of remaining silent becomes greater than the fear of speaking. Something is shifting. Slowly. Quietly. But undeniably. A decision that once felt impossible is beginning to feel necessary. Your soulmate is no longer asking whether they should follow their heart. They're asking themselves one final question. If I reach out, will they still believe me? That question has become the bridge between the past and whatever comes next. And somewhere deep inside, a small voice keeps answering them. You'll never know unless you try. That voice is becoming stronger every single day. That voice is becoming stronger every single day. It no longer whispers. It no longer disappears after a few moments. Now it follows them everywhere. While they're working. While they're driving. While they're trying to focus on something completely unrelated. Your energy finds its way back into their thoughts. At first, they questioned themselves. Why now? Why after all this time? But the more they searched for an answer, the more they realized something important. Some connections don't disappear because time passes. Some connections wait until both people have grown enough to understand their true value. Your soulmate is beginning to see this connection through different eyes. Not through excitement alone. Not through fantasy. But through maturity. They've stopped asking, what can I gain? Instead, they're asking, how can I become the person they deserve? That change says everything. Because people who are only driven by emotion often act impulsively. But people who are transformed by love begin changing themselves before asking anyone else to accept them. That's exactly where they are now. They're quietly rebuilding parts of themselves. Healing old wounds. Facing fears they avoided for years. Breaking habits that once kept them emotionally distant. No one around them fully understands why they've changed. Some friends have noticed they're quieter than before. Others think they're simply tired. But the truth is much deeper. They're thinking, reflecting, remembering, growing. Every lesson they learned somehow leads back to you. And there's one memory they return to more than any other. It isn't necessarily the biggest moment you shared. It isn't something dramatic. In fact, it's surprisingly simple. A smile. A conversation. A look. A moment where they felt completely understood without having to explain themselves. That memory has become their safe place. Whenever life feels overwhelming, their heart unconsciously returns to it. Because that memory reminds them of something they've struggled to find anywhere else. Peace. Real peace. Not temporary happiness. Not excitement. But the kind of peace that makes the soul feel at home. They're finally realizing that what they were searching for in so many different places already existed. They just didn't recognize it at the time. And that realization carries both hope and regret. Hope. Because they believe the story may not be over. Regret. Because they wish they had understood sooner. If they could speak to their younger self today, they would probably say only one thing. Don't let fear make decisions that love should make. Those words have become a lesson they will never forget. Now another feeling is coming through very strongly. They're afraid you've changed. Not in a negative way. They're afraid you've become so strong. So independent. So healed. That you no longer need them. They've watched life teach you difficult lessons. Whether from a distance or through intuition, they sense you've carried burdens that nobody truly understood. And they admire you for surviving them. They don't see you as broken. They see you as someone who kept walking, even when life gave every reason to stop. That strength inspires them. But it also intimidates them. Because they wonder. Would someone like that even make space for me again? It's a question they haven't found the courage to answer. Yet every day, their heart keeps pushing them toward the same decision. Reach out. Speak honestly. Stop hiding. No more pretending everything is fine. No more acting as though the connection meant less than it did. Because denying the truth has become far more painful than admitting it. The universe has an interesting way of bringing unfinished stories back into our lives. Not to repeat the same mistakes. But to see whether we've finally learned from them. And that's the energy surrounding this connection now. Not repetition. Transformation. Your soulmate doesn't want another chance to repeat the past. They want the opportunity to create something healthier. Something more honest. Something built on trust instead of fear. Whether that opportunity arrives through one unexpected message, one chance meeting, or one conversation neither of you planned, only time will reveal. But one thing feels unmistakably clear. Their heart is no longer running away. It's finally walking toward the truth. And sometimes, that first honest step is the one that changes everything forever. And sometimes, that first honest step is the one that changes everything forever. Because the moment someone stops running from their own heart, life begins to move in unexpected ways. Your soulmate has reached a place where pretending feels exhausting. They've spent so much time trying to appear unaffected that they almost forgot what honesty felt like. But the heart has a way of breaking through every wall we build around it. Lately, they've caught themselves smiling for no reason. Then suddenly becoming emotional. They've laughed with friends, only to return home and sit quietly, thinking about everything they never said. There are nights when they stare at the ceiling for hours. Not because they can't sleep, but because their thoughts refuse to let them rest. Every answer they search for leads back to the same place. You. Not because you're perfect. Not because relationships are without challenges. But because something about this connection continues to feel unfinished. And unfinished stories have a way of asking to be completed. I'm sensing that your soulmate has begun noticing signs they once ignored. A familiar name appearing unexpectedly. A song playing at exactly the right moment. Dreams that feel more real than ordinary dreams. Small coincidences that keep happening until they're no longer willing to call them coincidences. Each time it happens, the same thought quietly enters their mind. Maybe this isn't over. At first they resisted that thought. Now they're beginning to trust it. There's also a deep desire inside them to be understood. Not judged. Not criticized. Simply understood. Because they know they made mistakes. They know there were moments when fear spoke louder than love. There were times they chose silence instead of honesty. Distance instead of vulnerability. Pride instead of connection. Looking back now, those choices no longer make them feel strong. They make them feel sad. Because they finally understand that protecting themselves also meant losing something precious. If they could relive those moments today, they wouldn't hide behind excuses. They wouldn't wait for the perfect time. They would simply tell the truth. I was scared. Sometimes those 3 words explain more than 1,000 excuses ever could. They were scared of rejection. Scared of not being enough. Scared of opening their heart completely. And most of all, scared that loving someone this deeply would change their life forever. Now they realize something beautiful. It already did. Whether they admitted it or not. Meeting you changed the direction of their life in ways they are only beginning to understand. You became a mirror. A mirror that reflected both their greatest strengths and their deepest fears. At first, they looked away from that reflection. Now they're finally ready to face it. There's another message coming through very clearly. Your soulmate has stopped asking the universe to remove these feelings. Instead, they've started asking for courage. That's a powerful shift. Because when someone stops praying to forget, and starts praying for the strength to move forward, it means their heart has already made its decision. They may still move slowly. They may still hesitate. Old fears don't disappear overnight. But their direction has changed. They're no longer walking away from this connection. They're walking toward it. Even if the steps are small. Even if no one else can see them yet. Inside, everything is changing. Their heart feels lighter each day they choose honesty over fear. And somewhere deep within them, a quiet hope continues to grow. The hope that perhaps, just perhaps, life has one more beautiful chapter waiting to be written. Not the chapter they imagined years ago. A better one. A wiser one. One where both hearts speak openly. Where misunderstandings are replaced by conversations. where silence is replaced by truth, and where love is no longer hidden behind fear. That possibility is becoming more real in their mind every single day. Because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't finding the right person. It's becoming the right person after life has taught you what truly matters. And your soulmate feels closer to that realization than ever before. And your soulmate feels closer to that realization than ever before. For the first time in a long time, they're allowing themselves to imagine a future that once felt impossible. Not a fantasy. Not a perfect fairy tale. A real future. One where conversations replace assumptions. Where honesty replaces silence. Where two people stop pretending they don't care when, deep inside, they always have. That vision has become stronger with each passing day. There was a time when they believed the chapter had already ended. They told themselves that life had moved on. That some stories simply aren't meant to continue. But something inside them refused to accept that ending. Every attempt to close the door only reminded them that it had never truly been closed. It had simply been left waiting. Waiting for courage. Waiting for healing. Waiting for the right moment. Now that moment feels closer than ever. I'm sensing that your soulmate has begun noticing how much they've changed. The things that once seemed important don't matter as much anymore. Winning every argument. Always being in control. Protecting their pride. Keeping their emotions hidden. Those things no longer bring them peace. Instead, they've discovered something much more valuable. Emotional honesty. The ability to admit when they miss someone. The strength to apologize without making excuses. The courage to say, I was wrong. Not because someone forced them to, but because their heart has grown beyond the need to protect its ego. Growth often arrives quietly. No dramatic announcement. No sudden miracle. Just a series of small decisions that slowly transform a person from the inside out. That's exactly what's happening here. They've become more patient. More reflective. More aware of how deeply words can affect another person's heart. And with that awareness comes another realization. They understand that trust cannot be demanded. It must be earned. If life gives them another opportunity, they don't expect everything to return to normal overnight. They know healing takes time. They know forgiveness cannot be rushed. They know consistency matters more than promises. That understanding is changing the way they think about love. They're no longer searching for temporary excitement. They're searching for something lasting. Something peaceful. Something that feels like home. And strangely enough, whenever they imagine that feeling, your face quietly appears in their heart. Not because they force it. Because it happens naturally. There are moments when they catch themselves smiling at the thought of meeting you again. Then, almost immediately, fear tries to interrupt. What if it's too late? What if they've forgotten me? What if they don't feel the same anymore? Those doubts still exist. But something remarkable has changed. The hope inside them has finally become stronger than the fear. That doesn't mean they're fearless. It means they're finally willing to risk vulnerability for something that truly matters. Because some opportunities are worth taking a chance on. Some people are worth fighting for. Some connections deserve one final act of courage. Deep inside, they believe this is one of them. There's another energy surrounding this reading. Gratitude. Not just for what happened between you, but for who you helped them become. Whether you realize it or not, your presence encouraged them to grow, to question old patterns, to become more emotionally aware. Even your absence became a teacher. It showed them the value of what they once took for granted. Now they carry that lesson with them every day. They no longer want a connection built on assumptions. They want honesty, patience, mutual respect. The kind of love that survives difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. That desire has become part of who they are. And every step they take toward becoming that person feels meaningful. Because deep inside, they still believe that some stories are written twice. The first time to teach us. The second time to see whether we've truly learned. Perhaps that's why your energy continues to appear in their life. Not as a reminder of failure, but as a reminder of possibility. A possibility that has never completely disappeared. A possibility that still lives quietly within both hearts. And as each day passes, that possibility feels a little less like a dream, and a little more like something life is gently preparing to unfold. And a little more like something life is gently preparing to unfold. Your soulmate can feel that change, even if they don't fully understand it yet. There are moments when they suddenly become very quiet. People around them assume they're simply lost in thought. But inside, an entire conversation is taking place. A conversation between fear and hope. Fear keeps reminding them of everything that could go wrong. Hope keeps reminding them of everything that could finally go right. For a long time, fear was louder. Now, hope is beginning to win. That doesn't mean every doubt has disappeared. It simply means their heart has become stronger than the voice that once held it back. They've realized that some regrets never truly fade. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly forget someone who changed your life. Instead, you learn to carry those memories until they teach you what you were meant to understand. And your soulmate believes they've finally understood the lesson. Love isn't about finding someone who never challenges you. It's about finding someone whose presence makes you want to become a better version of yourself. That's exactly what happened to them. Whether they admitted it or not. Knowing you changed the way they see love. It changed the way they see themselves. And most importantly, it changed the way they see the future. Because now, whenever they imagine the years ahead, one question continues to return. What if I still have a chance? That question no longer feels impossible. It feels real. It feels close. Almost as if life is quietly placing the missing pieces back together. I'm also sensing that they've become much more careful with their words. They've learned that one careless sentence can remain in someone's heart for years. They've learned that silence can hurt just as deeply as harsh words. And because of those lessons, they're becoming someone who listens more than they speak. Someone who thinks before reacting. Someone who values understanding over being right. These changes may not be visible to everyone, but they're very real. Transformation rarely happens on the outside first. It begins within. Slowly. Patiently. One choice at a time. There is something else your soulmate wants you to know. If they ever have the chance to stand before you again, they don't want to impress you. They don't want to make dramatic promises. They don't want to convince you with beautiful words alone. They simply want to be honest. To tell you everything they never had the courage to say. To explain the silence without hiding behind excuses. To admit the mistakes without blaming anyone else. Because they've come to understand that honesty may not erase the past. But it can create a very different future. They've imagined that conversation countless times. Sometimes they picture you smiling. Sometimes they imagine tears. Sometimes they imagine nothing more than a peaceful silence where both hearts finally understand each other. Whatever the outcome, they've realized something important. Not speaking would hurt far more than hearing the truth. That realization has become the turning point. It's the reason their heart feels lighter than it has in a long time. Because carrying hidden emotions is exhausting. Pretending not to care is exhausting. Running from your own feelings is exhausting. And they're finally ready to stop running. Instead, they're choosing courage. Choosing truth. Choosing vulnerability. Step by step. Day by day. Not because it's easy, but because they believe some people are worth every risk. Some connections deserve every honest effort. Some hearts deserve to hear the words that were kept inside for far too long. And deep within their soul, they believe yours is one of those hearts. So tonight, wherever you are, whether the distance between you is measured in miles, or only in silence, know this. Somewhere, someone is slowly finding the courage they once believed they would never have. Someone is letting go of pride. Someone is making peace with the past. Someone is preparing to speak from the heart instead of from fear. And when that moment finally arrives, it won't be because fate forced it. It will be because love finally became stronger than silence. Sometimes, that is how the most meaningful chapters begin. Sometimes, that is how the most meaningful chapters begin. And as this message comes to a close, there is one final thing your soulmate wants you to hear. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Right now. If they could speak to you without fear, without pride, without worrying about how you might respond, they would simply say this. Thank you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for crossing my path. Thank you for teaching me what genuine love feels like. Even during the moments when I didn't know how to show it. Even when I became distant. Even when my silence created confusion. Your presence changed something inside me that can never return to what it was before. Because of you, I learned that love isn't measured by grand gestures. It's found in the little moments. The conversations that stay in your heart. The smile you remember years later. The feeling of peace that only one person can bring. I understand that now. And if life is kind enough to place us in front of each other again, I won't waste that moment. I won't hide behind fear. I won't pretend my heart feels nothing. I'll tell you the truth. The truth I've carried for so long. You mattered. You still matter. And a part of my heart has always hoped that somewhere, somehow, our story isn't finished yet. Whether that future becomes reality or simply remains a beautiful lesson, I will always be grateful that our souls found each other. Because meeting you made me become someone I never thought I could be. If you've been listening to this message until this very moment, perhaps there was something your heart needed to hear. Perhaps it reminded you of someone. Or perhaps it simply encouraged you to believe that healing is possible. Whatever brought you here, carry this one thought with you. The strongest connections are not built through perfect timing. They are built through honesty, growth, forgiveness, and the courage to choose love over fear. If this message resonated with your heart, don't rush to make life-changing decisions based on it. Let it be a moment of reflection rather than a prediction of what will happen next. Sometimes the greatest message isn't about someone else. It's about remembering your own worth, your own strength, and your own capacity to give and receive love. Thank you for sharing these moments with me. Until we meet again, take care of your heart, protect your peace, and never forget: the love that is truly meant for you will never require you to lose yourself to receive it. It will find you when the time is right. And when it does, may it bring you the happiness, honesty, and peace your soul has always deserved. Until next time, stay blessed, stay hopeful, and remember: every ending is quietly preparing the way for a new beginning.